Welcome back to Markets Today. I'm your host, Mbithe Muema. It's always an honor and a privilege being on this seat and being able to engage with the decision makers, not only locally, but globally. Now, today we take a different trajectory. We want to understand, what does it mean to be a leader? And not just a spectacular leader, but also to be a leader who's able to enhance and transform lives using good and ethical as well as responsible business practices. On the 9th of September, the Think for Peace Foundation actually awarded 3 honorees spectacular awards for their contribution in leadership and in business. This foundation has been honoring individual members for their contribution, which is aligned to the Sustainable Development Goals, and the anchoring goal for this particular awards is the SDG 8. SDG 8 focuses on economic growth and decent work. For this year, the year 2020, we had 3 people who were honored by this particular foundation. We had Mark Bainoff, who is the chair, as well as a co-founder and the chief executive officer of Salesforce. From Africa, we had Dr. James Mwangi, who is the managing director, as well as the chief executive officer of Equity Group. Now, the key contribution by some of these leaders was the fact that for the case of Dr. James Mwangi, he actually enhanced and contributed to financial inclusion in the continent. His Equity Group company, as well as the foundation, has succeeded in terms of enhancing financial inclusion, as well as putting 96% of the bankable population in Kenya as part of the social economic circle. Now, this has been a certainly well-celebrated award. It is akin to the Nobel Prize for Business. So today, we have the privilege, we also have the honor of speaking to one of the 3 honorees for the 2020 Oslo Business Peace Award. We welcome Dr. James Mwangi to the show, and we certainly congratulate you from the team here at Markets Today. Congratulations on your award, and welcome to the show, Dr. James Mwangi.
Thank you very much for having me today.
Okay, so when you win this award, I know you have won many awards, Dr. James Mwangi, but what does it mean to win the Oslo Business Peace Award? What does it mean for you? What does it mean for the Equity Group? And more importantly, what does it mean for the African continent?
This Oslo Business Award validates the business model that we have learned equity for the last 30 years. It, as a result, gives the world a business model that is validated. Also, financial inclusion now has been mainstreamed as a way of bringing peace into the world. We have also seen the validation of ethical practices in business. And more important, the model of shared prosperity by business. Essentially, equity is now being celebrated for bringing a soul and a human face to capitalism. And hopefully, adoption of this model will bring down the tension that has been there between society and business as regards sustainability of environment, as regards extractive practices. It has demonstrated that you can do well while doing good, and that a business can be an agent for social transformation and promotion of global peace and sustainability of environment.
All right. Thank you very much for that, Dr. Mwangi. You do allude that the Equity Group business, as well as your contribution, has been running for over 30 years. You also talk about not only doing well, but doing well in a way that is socially responsible. For the last almost 35 years that you have been at the helm of Equity Group, what has been your overriding business ethos, and how is this aligned to the tenets of the Oslo Business for Peace Award, and more specifically, the Standard Development Goals number 8 when it comes to economic growth as well as work?
There are three cornerstones to equity business model. The first one is essence or purpose. An equity group's purpose is to help transform lives and livelihoods while supporting business to create opportunities as it creates wealth. These are essential ingredients and offers us the compass that always point us to the true north. The true north is the essence of the bank. And whenever we have a challenge, we go back to the purpose and always seek answers as to what we should do at any given point in time. The second aspect of business is inclusive participation. All stakeholders, and that's why they are all generally called members, have a role to play. And one of the essence is to listen to them so that their participation in offering answers, priorities that the bank should focus on is always given an ear. And lastly is the value systems, the issue of the core values, as we call them, that guides us, that determines and defines the relationship in between the stakeholders. So three aspects of it: values, participation by all stakeholders, and an essence and purpose that becomes the guide to the true north, or our inner moral compass that gives us direction and sight of the right proposals and answers to the questions that keep on arising.
All right, thank you very much for that. I'll just come back on that and piggyback on your response. You're saying that it's important to have core values, and these core values of the entity as well as your core values have been able to define your contribution in this continent. The first question would be, how do you remain a listening partner? And I ask from a very simplistic perspective. Dr. James, we normally have relationships. It's very hard to keep listening to the same needs, the same challenges from the same people year in and year out. How do you sustain your core values? How do you listen over and above each and every single day? And how do you appear to be listening? And the second part to that question as well is, you have been listening for over 30 years. You have been listening in the African continent and been able to transform the lives of many. Dr. Mwangi, Africa, we say this is Africa because corporate governance and fraud are key predicaments to any business. So how do you listen? How do you not get tired? And how do you thrive and succeed in this African continent where people keep saying it's a dark continent, this is Africa, only bad things happen, it's very hard to get good stories. Over to you, Dr. Mwangi.
Equity is a part of a greater ecosystem, which we can broadly call the African continent. Our essence is to be an agent of socio-economic transformation of the African continent as a vision. And for that reason, we must be market-driven. We can't assume we know what the continent requires. So that's why we adopted the slogan and the listening, caring, financial partner. The essence of it, of listening, is not just to hear, but more importantly, to hear what is said and what is not being said. You can never be market-driven if your ears are not on the ground listening to what the market requires. The validator that equity is a listening partner is that it's a liability-driven organization. It is the market that decides where to deposit its money or to open bank accounts. And you look increasingly, equity with 14 million customers is becoming almost a nation by itself, in the sense that because of listening, aligning itself with the aspirations of the need of the marketplace, it has become a movement. People open accounts to equity to attain a membership status that allows them to actively participate in the decisions of equity, to be allocated resources, and to pursue their dreams. And what we have seen is that equity then is forced to listen because it can't tell the people's dreams. You cannot be able to be a partner in realization of somebody's dream if you don't listen with the intent to understanding what the dreams are. And that is what ingrains equity. We've borrowed a lot from the African culture, where we are constantly reminded we have one mouth, but we have 2 ears, so that we can hear as much as we talk. And so listening is part and parcel of our culture. But we have ingrained listening in our core values, where we say we pursue effective corporate governance. And with pursuit of effective corporate governance, if the objective of the bank is to listen, then that is ingrained in the practices. We talk of respect and dignity for customers, and it's respectful and dignifying to listen to their customer, to seek their understanding. And lastly, we seek unity of purpose and teamwork. You can't be a team player, and you can't play your role in unity of purpose if you are not a good listener. And I want to say that equity has played a lot, has never pretended that it knows everything. So it seeks to get educated by listening, and in the process learning what the market requires, what the partners require, what the customer require. And in the process, with humility, try to provide solutions. And it's the interface of a problem and a solution that customers are created. It is when you meet the customers at their point of need, because you listened and understood them, that they become loyal members. That is when they tend then to offer you an opportunity to become a one-stop shop for all their financial needs. May they be savings, may they be loans, may they be insurance, may they be payments, may they be custodial, simply because you attentively listen with the intent of understanding what is being said, not shooting down, not giving alternative views. Seek and keep on asking questions until you understand where the customer or the partner or the member is coming from. Okay. But this aspect of listening is what then has enabled us to become a very inclusive bank. Equity banking starts with the basic financial services, which it talks about inclusive. We listen to the refugees. We listen to social payments beneficiaries or safety net beneficiaries. And again, you can see the needs of those segments are very different from the needs of the retail customers. They're very different from the needs of the micro businesses. They are different from the small businesses. They are very different from the large enterprises. Because we are inclusive, we don't pretend that there is a one-fit-all solution for all segments in the marketplace. We then try to segment the market and listen to each segment and try to seek to understand that segment. Okay. And then happiness and joy only comes when we provide solutions that plugs to the challenges and the needs of our customers.
Okay. All right, thank you so much for that. Listening is a key thing, and it has to be part of you, but I also like that you bring out the context of being market-driven. Now, as we continue with being market-driven and your contribution in the African continent, your company has been very successful in terms of offering the very basic financial services, financial inclusion, enhancing the social and economic empowerment for a myriad of individuals who are previously underserved. Now, this entry has been providing savings accounts as well as providing loan facilities and deposit facilities, which your bank has been very successful at. But when we look at financial inclusion and we look at the interplay of financial inclusion with technology, what next? Do we get to a space where then we are able to move Africans with the support of your company, the support of your vision, the support of your motivation, from just saving and also having access to lending to investments. How does this interplay, and how do you see us moving from a point of investments where then the financial well-being of Africans is actually improving? Over to you, Dr. James Mwangi.
Financial inclusion is the entry point to the marketplace where allocation of resources happen. Banks mobilize deposits and then using a credit mechanism allocates that to needs and aspirations. As we said, that for me is the beginning point. It is when you motivate people to save, and from savings then you can do investments. And when there are deficits in investments, then you couple that with loans or fill those deficits with loans. As we go on, we then need to offer the whole range of financial services that there could be complementarity in terms of use of tools. Savings play one role, credit plays another role. Insurance will play a more significant role to secure gains that have been achieved. Custodial services will play a very huge role in ensuring safekeeping of assets that have been acquired, while brokerage services helps to advise and to allow people to play into market using the wisdom and the knowledge of experts. And then, of course, we then go to project financing. As Africa entrepreneurs move on from trading to investment, to project implementation, then we start developing different tools from the traditional intermediation. Now it is project financing. Now it's a long-term investment decision. Then we usher people to the capital markets. And from capital markets, so then we enhance not now debt, but more equity and capital. So it's an evolution. We are evolving as the marketplace evolves. We are evolving as the needs of the continent becomes complex and sophisticated, so different tools. Then as it becomes more sophisticated, then we introduce things like derivatives to protect markets. We introduce things like swaps to protect positions that and to bring predictability in the marketplace or to hold the market into a constant position. That is the journey that equity has embraced. That's the journey that defines the evolution of equity. And because equity listens to the market, we are always in tandem. We move together. And this is very best reflected by the graduation process, where we see customers recruited at micro level. Over time, they become small enterprises. Yes. Over time, they become medium enterprises. We see them becoming large enterprises, and eventually they become corporate. And that truly reflects the journey of equity over a period of 35 years. Starting as number 66 out of 66 financial service provider, now to the pole position of being the largest bank in East and Central Africa in terms of market capitalization, in terms of customer base, and by first half results in terms of profitability. This is a journey we understand. And so we can guide, coach, and mentor through relationships our customers so that they can take the same journey. At every step of the journey, the product and offering has to change so that it's relevant to the needs of that stage of evolution and development of the business. That also reflects the growth and sophistication of the African economy. Where equity has contributed most is mobilizing and delivering the entire population to play a role in the marketplace or in the economic sphere, so that they can do transactions, they can be in the marketplace, they can get the benefits of development. And that is what financial inclusion is. It moves people to the marketplace, and as soon as they're in the marketplace, then they start becoming socially included, economically included, digitally included, and essentially we raise the esteem and pride of the people.
Okay.
Success begets success, and what we have realized is that the customers who make big strides in early stages then quickly transcend through the ladder of evolution. And it's only when an entire population participates in the economic field, where opportunities are created, where benefits of opportunities are unlocked, and where prosperity of a nation is shared, then you can talk of sustainable development.
Okay.
And I would like to say, when I look back, the greatest contribution of equity is creating that platform for everybody to play a role in the economic development of the African continent, and also to get an opportunity to tap into the transformation and the benefit that the transformation brings on the table. Okay. The demonstration effect of equity is very, very significant. Moving from position 66 out of 66 to position 1 in one generation means that you not only inspire that generation, but future generations. You demonstrate what is possible, what is achievable, and what a focused human society could be able to achieve. So that is what we celebrate most, the role modeling and the inspiration that equity brings over and above the financial assets that it or contribution.
Thank you so much for that. So a lot of things, lots of motivations, but I like that you're still listening to the people around you and you are evolving your products and services just to be able to ensure that you are still in the market. Now, if I am the youth in Africa, and the youth is the majority of the population, you do reference the fact that the bank came from being number 66 out of 66 in Kenya in terms of its performance. And as we have followed your journey as a bank, you came from a negative point of negative shareholder equity, and you have grown every year. And at the beginning of this journey, every 5 years, you are doubling in terms of whether it's your asset size, whether it's your loans or liabilities, or your profitability. Today, when you speak to the youth, because you have won this business, Oslo 2020 Business for Peace Award, and some of the tenants are inspirational leadership. Some of the tenants are people who are spectacular in terms of their involvement in society and having a transformative and societal impact that is broader than just focusing on profits. The youth in Kenya today, the youth in the African continent today, what will you tell them? In other words, over the last 35 years that you have been working, how has the business world evolved, and how should the youth look at the opportunities and position themselves for these opportunities from where you stand off, Dr. Mwangi? Back to you.
To the youth of Africa, and specifically Kenya, equity is a creation of a problem in society. The most scalable businesses are built to solve society's problem. Equity was built to solve the problem of exclusion of our people. Only 4% of the population had bank accounts. With equity's contribution, that has grown to 86% of all Kenyans having bank accounts. And it's that opportunity of growing the population with access to financial services from 4 to 86 that created the opportunity for Equity Bank. Today, Equity is home to 60% of all Kenyans with the bank accounts. And that is what has created that flight path of Equity moving from number 66 to number 1. Equity has been growing tenfold every 5 years for the last 25 years. And that is the meticulous growth that reflects how many people equity is able to bring into the banking industry, solving the problem of their exclusion. And equity did that by removing the barriers in financial services provision that kept people out of accessing the financial services. Now, looking at Africa, we have a lot of challenges that confront society. And we should see these challenges as opportunities for business models. And all that we need to do is to define the problem, see it not as a challenge, but as an opportunity, then craft a business proposition for that challenge, create a business model that would work for that business proposal, and there off we go. And one problem at a time, we solve our society's problem. Africa has a lot of many challenges, and hence the huge opportunities. Some look at the problem of housing, the level of slums, the level of informal settlement in our cities as we urbanize provides maybe the biggest opportunity. But we have to crack the challenge of low-cost housing. It's not just another house, it's an affordable house that would be able to provide that solution. That involves the technology of building. We must move away from the expensive technologies of putting up homes and look at technologies that can reduce the cost substantially so that majority of people can afford a home.
Okay.
The second problem is solving the problem of long-term funding. At the moment, our financial service infrastructure provides short-term loans. Housing is a long-term funding asset. So essentially, a huge bank can emerge in society if we also have a solution to how to build long-term funding so that we can be able to give long-term loans. So you can see how many big companies and big opportunities are there in just one single problem. The second biggest challenge is low productivity in our agriculture. Africa will only be fully transformed when we transform our agriculture. Europe transformed its agriculture through the agrarian revolution. Asia through the green revolution. We still need to transform our agriculture from low productivity agriculture to high productivity agriculture. We need to ask ourselves, what is the appropriate fertilizers for African soils? What are the right seeds for Africa's climate? How do we move away from rain-fed agriculture to affordable technology that guarantees irrigation? Is it water harvesting? Is it converting water vapor in air into drips that so all these are solutions. So what we need to appeal for in Africa is creativity and innovation. And I'm really glad that these are part of the core values of the bank. And this is what has helped us to propel. We always creatively and innovatively think outside the box. And it's these innovations that has generated that tenfold growth every 5 years. We make it easier for people. We make it more affordable. That is how we cracked the model of high volume, low margins. And then today, we are now even making that even more affordable by saying, let's remove fixed cost and move to variable cost by digitizing and virtualizing the bank and moving to third-party infrastructure for delivery of service or self-service platform on devices. That again will cut our cost substantially. And as soon as we cut cost, then our products become more affordable, more people are able to become members. So that ability to think differently creatively, innovatively. The second thing is to take a long-term view. Africa needs to take a long-term view. It has taken us 35 years to bring equity to where it is. That patience in terms of capital is essential. I've always heard about risk in Africa, but we have thrived, grown tenfold every 5 years in that same Africa. So the ability also to manage risk and to understand risk is essential, and not to take stereotypes. Get into the marketplace and do what needs to be done, but be patient, so that it is the compounded growth rate that build great institutions, institutions that last. And let's create foundations that outlive us, so that we become better, with one generation laying the foundation, the other generation building, the other generation maturing, the fourth generation expanding, the fifth generation globalizing. That ability to think long term is what will move Africa from where we are to where we want to be, where quality of life for our people is enhanced, where our resources are exploited for the betterment of our people, where peace and tranquility is available because everybody has a skin in the game, because everybody is living a high quality standard of life.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. You're breaking it down in terms of there is a responsibility for each and every generation to take up the mantle and be able to push the boundaries so that we can be able to move to the next opportunities. Thank you so much, Dr. Mwangi, also for just highlighting the opportunities in housing and agribusiness. And I think I appreciate that you're saying we have to take a long-term perspective as well as look and source for patient capital if some of these opportunities are going to be visible. Now, in the award of this particular honor, which is the Oslo 2020 Business for Peace Award, the institution does recognize the interplay of technology and business. You have alluded to the existence of technology and how this has helped your company in terms of improving efficiency as well as reducing the touch points with your customers. What is the opportunity for technology today for Africa, especially when you focus on the context of financial inclusion, moving the majority of savers into the space of either project finance, capital markets, or investing? And in addition to that, how do we look at technology? Because the technology options, the technology solutions that the majority of African farms use are exported for outside the country. So how does this play? Do we see a space where perhaps we are able to create our own homegrown and expand the well-being of Africa as a country and achieve the proverbial leapfrog status for Africa as a continent? Or how should we appreciate the adoption of technology and the opportunity of technology as well as its interplay in business? Back to you, Dr. Mwangi.
Technology is an outcome of innovation. And technology is an enabler of dreams and aspirations. So technology represents that interface, one of innovation and change in society. Equity will not be able to serve 14 million customers using brick and mortar. For my mother, Grace, Kagema branch was what she liked most. It was where she went to get banking services. For her grandchildren, they don't want banking to be a place they go to. They want banking to be what they do on their devices, and specifically their phone or internet. So we see that technology enables us to accommodate changes in demography. Technology is a very big enabler to affordability by cost effectiveness and efficiency. When we look at, I entered the banking industry during the era of manual systems. It was the era of passbook and ledger cards. When you look today, that you don't even need a bank statement. The bank balances and the transactions appear on your screen. It shows the efficiency level. You could imagine the amount of trees that we have saved by moving away from bank statements, from passbooks, to today, not even bank statements, to really virtual statements. That is the progress that society makes because of one, innovation, which focuses on enhancing the technology offering and the use of technology. The second thing is the power of the computer. When I look at the ledger cards that we use to balance and shelf sheets that we used to make, and then look at today, and also at the step we then entered into of batch systems, and now we are talking about online systems. Then we used to talk of edit-day systems. We are now talking about systems that have no editing. They just cruise and move on. They are 24-hour system. That shows the progress that humanity has made. It shows the efficiency and enhancement of quality that has occurred during period. But again, that speaks of the innovation that has happened. It is true we can leapfrog a lot on technology, but as Africans, we need to remember that it's not about cut and paste. It's not about adopting technologies developed in other markets. I like particularly referring to the facial recognition technology and the challenges that Africans we go through. Because at the moment, facial recognition technology has all been developed in the Western world. And when you look at when they are creating the system, they are creating for facial images of the Western people. So when you bring a completely different kind of facial representation, you find what we have gone through. Systems, you are at an airport and the system is failing to be able to recognize your face and match your face, and you have to go through a manual door. That is why we should really develop our own technology that respects and is tested on our on skin's figments and is able to be able to recognize us much easier than talking about adaptation. I've also had the privilege of taking photos with my friends from the Western world. And I see how much cameras have not been adapted to our skin pigments. And any photo that you have, a Western and an African, you see the challenge of the camera adapting to the two extremes in terms of complexion or color complexion. So if we were developing technology, it's not us who should be having a disadvantage. It's the Western population that would be having, but now they live with it to us. They test the systems using their faces, and then essentially the technology is being adapted to us. So there is a huge opportunity. It's like also when it comes to research and innovation in the field of medicine. Tropical diseases are principally tropical diseases. The Western world, the temperate world, doesn't have tropical diseases. So essentially, the Western world, the temperate world, doesn't focus on tropical diseases for their research and development in science and medicine. So it is for us who are confronted by tropical diseases then to fast track. And that is why many years, many centuries after some of these tropical diseases were recognized, we still have not solved them because we have not developed our capability for research, in-house capability of research and innovation within the continent. So I want to really emphasize that it's not sufficient to use technology. it is more important for us to develop our own technology that responds to our circumstances, to our situations, and to our abilities and capabilities. And so, particularly for the young people, let's reduce our dependence. I think COVID movement has taught us about the disruption of global supply chains and the hence, particularly for our own security, for our own good, to develop African capability. Where that capability is needed most is in creativity and innovation, and particularly in the technology space. That is only when then we become globally competitive, but more importantly, create wealth through innovation. There is nothing rewarding as innovation. The market is always willing to pay a premium for solutions that change standards. But if we tend then to be a consumer, then all of us are conveyor belts of our wealth to the Western world as we reward them for, and pay a premium for their own innovation. Time has come for Africa to tap in that premium that the world is and the marketplace is always willing to pay for enhancement of technology and science, particularly through innovations.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. It sounds like it's a time for Africa to actually come up with its own solutions. And as far as technology is concerned, and creativity and innovation are certainly the key pillars for the achievement of this. Dr. Mwangi, this Oslo 2020 Business for Peace Award also recognizes your contribution in as far as achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, economic growth, as well as decent growth. Now that it has been able to just enshrine what your motives and your driving force as well as your basis for being as an individual, as well as the person who has been driving the equity group for the last 35 years, does getting to this point mean that your vision for the bank is changing? How does the vision for the bank evolve from here on? And how does then the bank fit into enhancing the well-being for Africa as a continent? Back to you, Dr. Mwangi.
The validation of the equity business model, our ethical practices, our shared value prosperity has opened many doors for us. I see investors have recognized quickly how unique this model is and how fit this model is. This model has validated the Global Vision Award that we won in Germany during the G8 of 2007 as initiators of a concept of the future that will shape the global economy. I think this award then has raised us to a platform that we now need to champion beyond Kenya, beyond Africa, and champion at a global platform. I'm glad that I've taken up the responsibility to join a cluster of like-minded CEOs around the world to lead a champion rebuilding or building the world economy better after COVID by putting purpose first. As you can see, that's what has built equity. So we have the moral authority to champion this globally. The 32 case studies that has been done by business school, I think Harvard has 3, Stanford has 3, MIT have 1, Lagos Business School has 13, Columbia University has 9, has set the precedence that we should not be shy by trying to do what was predicted in 2007 to shape the global economy. So we'll take with zeal that responsibility. We join the Harvard professors, then the UN, in that small team of 12 to champion not just purpose first as the basis of building the world better, but more importantly, to bring a human face and a human soul to capitalism. I think we need to bridge the gap of trust that exists between business and societies and communities. And that needs to be really championed, and I've accepted the privilege of championing that. I think there is an opportunity also to champion inclusion. And it's not just financial inclusion. This model demonstrates that there is need for inclusion, digital inclusion, there is need for social inclusion, there is need for economic inclusion, and there is need for inclusion in everything. Nobody should be left behind. And it also then affirms the need to advocate for a world to focus on bridging the gap between the rich and the poor. I think the inequality gap in the world is not sustainable. So equity model speaks of all this because this is what it has championed, that as a national champion, this is what it has helped a lot. In 2007, when McKinsey was crafting Kenya's Vision 2030, it cited the equity for contributing to 2% of the GDP of the economy by bringing millions of Kenyans to the economic space to make their contribution to the transformation of the economy and to benefit from the benefits of transformation and the growth of the economy. So that, because it has been demonstrated at the institutional level, at the economy level, at the societies level, particularly when you look at how equity has managed to have two engines, a social engine navigated by Equity Group Foundation and an economic engine navigated by the commercial businesses, and two, bringing greater benefits to community, integrating the commercial arms with the society's needs, solving society's biggest problems, then we feel that this is a model we should champion to make the world a better place for humanity. But also coming back to equity,
yes.
Now as the managing director of equity, I think this now speaks to us the need to scale equity so that more people can benefit, more people can be reached. And we have really now focused on making equity a 100 million customer bank by the year 2025. And we are glad that digital capability will quickly allow us to really reach out to the emerging demographics, the youthful population, with the digital and virtual capability that the bank has developed. And hopefully that will significantly enhance and increase the impact of equity, making society better by doing well while still doing good to society.
Thank you so much for that. Now, you know, I'm an analyst, so when I hear 100 million, you know, my antennas go up and I get very excited. I know you've done a fantastic job with the team at Equity Group in terms of your penetration in East, and now you have started emerging, going into Central Africa. What other parts of Africa provide an opportunity? And as you're answering that, I know you look at Africa as a continent, you interact with different stakeholders at different levels of decision making. What are your views when it comes to policy and regulation, and how do this then enable and sustain businesses such as yourselves? And really also on the back of that, how do SMEs then see the opportunity so that they can also be able to scale and more so follow in your footprints in the African continent? Back to you, Dr. Mwangi.
There's a huge opportunity for lobbying for appropriate regulation. I think time has come for us to use regulation as an enabler to the world solving its problems. The limitations that has greatly been there has had a lot to do with the regulation. Regulation has been left behind by innovation, and to a great extent, regulation has inhibited innovation. So getting smart regulation is an essential prerequisite for the great transformation that innovation and technology hold as a promise to the African continent. The second aspect is policy. Regulation needs to be guided by policy, and we need to lobby policy both at the institutional level, at the economic level, at the national level, at the regional level, and more importantly, at the continental level. I really like the policies that we have adopted, particularly for the African Free Trade Area, the Open African Skies policy. But we need to ensure that these policies are supported by regulation, such that we can overcome the bottlenecks that we have seen with the East African community integration. So those gaps are ones that we need concerted efforts to be able to bring. I think we need to bring civil servants and political class more on the table, and particularly demonstrate to them how their decisions and how their outlooks toward issue affect the economy, in terms of the private sector is the driver of the economic engines of an economy. So that balance between protection and progress needs to be struck, such that there is a balance between consumer protection, market protection, with development of markets. It's the protection that sustains, but it's the development of markets that create wealth, prosperity for society. So that is an area that I feel we should really focus on. At the moment, looking at the 7 countries that Equity has presence in, including the regional, the representative office in Ethiopia, means we will be in a country with 450 million people, with Ethiopia and DRC almost contributing half of that population, and the other 5 countries almost contributing 200 million people. So essentially, if we manage to get the same level of financial inclusion like Kenya, 86%, within those markets, we could be able to achieve 100 million customers by just promoting inclusion in the markets that we are. We're looking at DRC, it's only 6% of 100 million people who have access to financial services. So that provides us with a huge opportunity. Ethiopia is at 12%, so it means 88% of the population. So it is like resetting the equity crop back to the 90s, where Kenya was at 4% financial inclusion, but doing it now much faster because we have insights, we have lessons, we have accumulated wisdom, but more importantly, we have appropriate technology as an enabler, and we have the financial resources, particularly capital, to be able to grow much faster. And we have earned the reputation of being focused to making society better, making the regional more inclusive, reducing the gap between the rich, giving everybody an opportunity to play. So we can easily form partnerships with governments, partnerships with regulators, so that we could be able to achieve a more equitable African society much faster, and to reduce poverty much more faster than we could have done using old regulatory and business models.
All right. Thank you so much for that. So a lot of work still needs to be done, but I like that you're very positive and you're focusing on the challenges and you're very opportunistic of this continent. Now, as we're coming to the tail end of this conversation, what would be your words of wisdom when you're speaking to SMEs? Because we hear in this country, in other countries in the continent, that there is an opportunity for the small and the medium as well as the micro enterprises to leverage on technology and to be able to take these inefficiencies not as a bottleneck, but as an opportunity to grow businesses, whether it's in the services space or in the goods space. What would you tell SMEs today, bearing in mind where you have come over the last 35 years, what you see as the future of the continent, either it's into the year 2030 or Africa 2063? What would be the underpinning words of wisdom that you would be able to pass to this cohort?
I think a few insights I could share with particularly the business community, with entrepreneurs. One is that we're in a global market. So our capacity and competitiveness must be at the global level. While we are playing into the African market is integrated with global markets. So quality should be a priority. Efficiency should be a priority so that we are globally competitive and we can be able to protect our markets from imported goods. That is something none of us should be lost to. The second thing is to be globally competitive. We must enhance our capacity, capability, and competence as entrepreneurs to the global level. And given that the Western world have a long history of learning, with the institutions, some of them being 600 years, with a majority of our institutions of learning being just barely 60 years old, almost a tenth. We have been building our economies only for a tenth of the period that the Western world has been building the economies. We must really enhance our learning capabilities so that our competence, either in managerial perspective, in innovation, in creativity, is as good as it could be to the Western world. We shouldn't be consumers of technology. We shouldn't be consumers of innovation without actively being part and parcel of the innovating class. So let's try as much as possible to lead innovation and to support society for greater good for ourselves. The second thing is, as entrepreneurs, we are as good as the marketplace. No organization, no enterprise can be better than the marketplace that it plays in. So it will be imperative for us as entrepreneurs to invest massively in enhancing, one, the disposable income of our marketplace, so that determines the pace at which our markets will grow, the quality of that demand and effectiveness of that demand, by ensuring we are investing in society to enhance that capability. We should be in the forefront of investing, of supporting society to invest. We're the biggest consumer of the educated population. So we should align ourselves with the investment in education. We need a healthy labor. We should champion investment in the health of our systems of our countries. So those two social investments should not be left to government. Because essentially the private sector grows faster than the capability of governments to invest. So we should, in one way or another, become partners with government and drive innovation in knowledge and health of the population that becomes the labor force of enterprises. And this is where then the issue of doing good as we do well commercially comes in. We should be investors in society, and then we should really embrace shared prosperity models and value chain, value shared models within the commercial enterprises, because that is an investment. Any prosperity you share is an investment to make the marketplace and society better and that improves the environment in which we are investing in. I think we need to reduce the tension and mistrust between business and society. So I think it is wise as a class and as a business community to embrace ethical values that give certainty and guarantee of our predictability and reliability by society. We must be the face of that is good and light in society so that we can rebuild the trust. And lastly, I think COVID has taught us that an equal world is not sustainable. So I would really recommend to my colleagues in the business community that we help to build the world better. We build the world afresh with ethical practices, with shared value proposals with the society, and a world that has no mistrust between business, society, and community at large. And lastly, that our transformation and success is dependent on our creativity and innovative approach to issues. We should not always be a generation behind because we are leveraging and waiting for other communities to innovate and then demonstrate the value of innovation, and we are adopting technology when the rest of the world is moving to the next evolution in terms of innovation. And lastly, it behooves us as a generation to make the African continent better. As a society, we owe it to ourselves to transform our society. And to remember most that as we celebrate our success, it's better to celebrate, and it's sweeter to celebrate the success of others. So let's be agents of change and transformation in the African continent, a transformation that is people-centered, that we leave none of us of our people behind, because the severity of our society is determined by how it treats the weakest among itself. So we can reset the new global standards. COVID has given us that moment where we could be able to reset and become the center of that which is right and that is which is good, and we in the world, and we become the admiration of the entire world as a civilization. Wow. Thank you.
Thank you so much for all of that, Dr. Mwangi. We've come to the very tail end of this conversation. And again, from me, Mbithe Muema, and the team at Markets Today as well as Metropol TV, we truly congratulate you and stand with you as you receive the 2020 Oslo Business for Peace Award. I like that you say it's a win for Equity Group, it's a win for SMEs, it's a win for everybody who wakes up and works very hard, tirelessly from morning to evening to make a difference, not only for themselves, but for their community. Dr. Mwangi, as we come to the end of this conversation, I'd like to pass it back to you for your closing remarks, and perhaps if there's anything that's pertinent to this award and pertinent to the vision of Africa or Equity Group that you would like to add, I'd kindly ask that you add it. Back to you, Dr. Mwangi.
Thank you very much, Mbithe. I would just like to reinstate what you have just said. This is a win for Africa. It has really brought recognition to us as a race. It has brought recognition to us as a continent, and it has put us on a table that we can be honored and be respected, and that we can contribute to knowledge to the rest of the world. As we learn, the rest of the world could learn from us. I hope this award will inspire all of us to do our very best to make the African continent much better. I want just to add by reminding each of us that there is power of one. Each of us has an amazing gift. All that we need to do is to do the best that we could to leave the world a better place, recognizing that there is power in one. The power of one, aggregated to 1.2 billion, is the force that Africa requires for its own transformation. So each of us should put our best foot forward to make Africa a better place for our children and our grandchildren during our lifetime. Thank you very much, Mbithe.
Thank you so much. That was Dr. James Mwangi, one of the 3 people and spectacular leaders honored this year for the 2020 Business for Peace Awards. Now, this Business for Peace Awards is akin to winning a Nobel Prize, but in the business segment. Dr. Mwangi was recognized for his contribution in financial inclusion in East and Central Africa. This has been a conversation taking us back from the roots of Equity Group 35 years ago, when this company was number 66 out of 66 in Kenya. He's taken us through how the mind had to change and the cultural values as well as the business ethos had to change to be able to drive a sustainable and a successful as well as a profitable business. This is a company that has been able to double its key matrices each and every single 5 years for the last 25 years. Certainly something spectacular, something that has come from the African continent, and something that tells us and inspires us to the fact that there could be inefficiencies in our continent, but there is so much to be grateful for. There's so many opportunities. We all just need to rise up, do our absolute best, and take on that responsibility of changing the narrative for the African continent. That's what we have for you this day. That was Dr. James Mwangi. It was an honor and a privilege. My name is Mbithe Muema. I'm your host for Markets Today at Metropol. We end this session at this point in time, and I hope to see you again soon.